Hey guys, this is Penelope in London, and I wanted to look at this chart that happened before the full moon. I did a full moon video a couple of days ago of the full moon in Aquarius, so you can go back and look at that if you wish. But I wanted to talk about the Venus square Mars and Lilith. So this chart, if you can see here, is the July 29th, and this was at 6:40 a.m. Universal Time 29th. So this was before it was about the afternoon was the full moon in the UK, and I was very fascinated by the Mars opposition or square to Venus. So Mars in Gemini at 21 degrees 13. And then if you look here, my pointer, you can see Venus in Virgo at 21:13. And then you've got true Lilith up here at 23 degrees. And this, it was very charged. To me, that's a very charged thing going on there. So what we're talking about is what's happening in the current sky right now or earlier today. And the thing that I would like to give deserves proper attention is the Lilith. The first for me is this T-square between Venus, Mars and true Lilith that came about. And as it does, I personally feel for all three because Venus is, our needs. And then we've got Lilith, which is in Sagittarius, which is this voice that has been suppressed. And also in Sagittarius, it's about truth. And then we've got Mars in Gemini, which is also communicating something. And the other thing was the North Node, which has just moved into Aquarius, which is really beautiful here. I don't know if you felt the energy shift. I think it's been a really heavy month. I mean, I've definitely been challenged myself this month. And I always find, when I say I always find, I noticed last year around July when the sun is moving through the sign of Cancer, that's my eighth house. So I do find it quite an interesting sort of heavy period of time for me. In fact, the last two Julys, 2024, 2025, and this year, I noted. So next year, I'll make sure I do something nice for myself during July. This North Node that moved into Aquarius, which is really significant and exciting for all of us. I know we're all going through our own things, but I still find it exciting. And then the third one is that Saturn stationed and went retrograde, which shapes the atmosphere of the weeks ahead. So if we'll take a quick look at these. And tomorrow I'm going to put out a video about the retrogrades. And if there's anything that you want to talk about in this chart or comment about or that you enjoy, please like or share my videos if you wish, or subscribe. And it helps my channel. But there you go. So the T-square, Venus, Mars and true Lilith. So Venus, Mars, true Lilith, square, T-square. Venus in Virgo, Mars in Gemini, true Lilith in Sagittarius. All three of these became exact around the 21 degree. I know that Lilith is 23 degrees up there of the respective signs, forming a T-square, and that's a three-armed configuration of tension and pressure that is one of the most dynamic aspects, patterns in astrology. And I'm going to maybe interpret what I feel it means, and let me explain about the three players and why the combination is so charged. So Venus in Virgo is the principle of love, worth, relationships and value, operating through the sign of discernment, precision, and the careful examination of what is real. And Venus in Virgo, it's not about romanticism. Venus in Virgo, she looks at what is actually there, the genuine substance of a relationship or a situation, rather than feeling of what it might be. So it's actually being precise. It's really looking at the figures in front of us. If we were going to be looking at our accounts as an example, she is precise. She is body aware also because it holds the sixth house, so it's health. She is honest about detail, and the details are really important. At her best, she is a love that tends carefully, that notices, that brings genuine quality of attention to whatever she values. So you could look where Virgo is in your chart. For me, it's in my midheaven. And that's where I give my attention and care to. It's very interesting, although Venus is not there for me, but Venus has been there as it's gone over my midheaven the last few days at 21 degrees, because my Venus midheaven is not my Venus midheaven. My midheaven is 20 degrees of Virgo. So she notices and brings genuine quality of attention to whatever she values. And at the shadow, there can be this criticalness and anxiousness, excessively analytical about what is working and what is not. So it can be quite difficult inwardly when we feel that way, trying to figure something out. So Mars in Gemini, as you can see here, 21 degrees. Mars in Gemini is the active, communicating, fast-moving, masculine principle in the sign of information, language, and the circulation of ideas. And Mars in Gemini acts through words. It argues, debates, moves quickly between positions, uses communication as its primary instrument of force, which is very interesting because I've been watching, I'm in the UK, and I was watching a few of the reels of Rand Paul and Fauci being questioned, which is very uncomfortable to watch because every time he was asked a question, he claimed the Fifth Amendment, which, really, have we really got anything to hide? If we haven't done anything wrong, then we don't need to take a Fifth Amendment, I would say, but each their own. And things are, the way I see that, even that case, it's like it was so integrated through countries, and whatever went on there with that whole COVID thing, it was definitely an integration of different countries coming together to making very strange rules at the time. So it wasn't just one person involved in all of this, but one more will come out in time, I guess. Anyway, back to 2026 instead of 2020. So Mars in Gemini acts through words. It argues, debates, and moves quickly between positions, using communication as its primary instrument of force. And at its best, it is brilliant, quick-minded advocacy that cuts through confusion to the heart of an issue. At its shadow, because there's a shadow side to everything, is the speed that bypasses depth. So sometimes, we can be so fast that we bypass depth. And the argument that wins on agility rather than truth, the information that circulates without grounding. So it's difficult to know what the truth is. Each individual knows what the truth is to themselves. So, and then there is true Lilith in Sagittarius up here, you can see. And that is a raw, uncompromising, expelled feminine in the sign of the philosopher, the truth seeker, the archer who fires towards meaning regardless of whether the meaning is welcome or convenient. And we have been tracking Lilith across the sky, or I have, through the period of time, like every time I look at an astrology chart. And at the Sagittarius full moon in May, at the new moon in Cancer, and at this full moon in Aquarius, she keeps appearing because she is persistently, urgently present in the collective field right now. Lilith in Sagittarius is the truth teller who was cast out of the acceptable story for asking the wrong questions, and that would have been in the Garden of Eden. But some people aren't aware of that story, but it does stand in faith and also mythology. She lived in the wilderness outside the walls of the permitted narrative, and she has not stopped speaking. And where she was being shut down, she's literally refused to be shut down. So the T-Sqaure in action, Lilith in Sagittarius opposing the Mars in Gemini, the expelled truth teller, in direct confrontation with the fast-moving, communicating masculine. And this opposition is about whose version of truth gets to circulate. And Mars in Gemini can move information at speed. It is skilled at the quick argument, that clever reframe, and the communication that wins by being faster and more agile than what it is up against. So Lilith in Sagittarius is not interested in speed or agility. She is interested in what is actually true. And this is what's beautiful about the archetype of Lilith. She's interested in what is the truth, in the deep philosophical question rather than the surface answer, in the meaning that sits beneath the noise. So if you look around what's been going on through media and the news at the moment, we can see this playing out, and then it's a felt experience. So Venus in Virgo at the apex of this T-squares, here you can see there, is the pressure point and the place where the tension between Mars, the fast communication, and Lilith, uncompromising truth, has to be navigated. And Venus in Virgo, precisely the right planet for this job, even though it's not comfortable, because Virgo's gift is discernment and the capacity to look at what is actually real rather than what is wished for or feared. So what is real? It's not what do I fear or what do I wish for, it's what is real. And the invitation, of this T-square is towards a form of communication that is neither Mars, the speed without depth, nor Lilith's wilderness without form, but Venus in Virgo's precise, honest, carefully tended articulation of what is genuinely true. So at a personal level, this T-square is alive in any situation where we are navigating the tension between speaking quickly and speaking honestly, where the pressure is to communicate at someone else's pace is in conflict with the need to say what is actually true rather than what is expedient. So where the voice has been suppressed, the Lilith voice, the one that was told she had no right to speak in a particular space, is pressing toward expression. So expressing ourselves. And Venus in Virgo at the apex is asking, can you find the precise word, the honest articulation, and the carefully considered expression that does justice to what Lilith is carrying without losing the speed, the Mars speed? So if you look at your life, maybe you've been experiencing a situation as such. At the collective level, this T-square for me is describing something that I think most of us can feel in the current information environment, the tension between the fast circulation of information, the confusion about maybe how, what damage is the use of AI to the environment, because there's a lot around water as well, and and land and the noise of these centers as well. And we're all using this stuff, so even if we don't think we're using something like Claude or AI, ChatGPT, we're all using it. Most of us have a mobile phone. You have a mobile phone, you're using artificial intelligence. And if you watch YouTube, so people can think they're not using it, but they're partaking in it. We are all partaking in it. And the tension between this fast circulation of information, which Mars in Gemini excels at, and the deeper, more difficult, more inconvenient truth that Lilith in Sagittarius refuses to stop pointing toward. And Venus in Virgo, it's asking the collective, what is actually real here? Because I think there's a lot of things that really aren't real. We get very scared about things, the possibilities of wars or shortages, and we see what's playing out on the world stage. And it is a bit like a play, that movie, I can't recall what it was called now, but it'll come to me. But the idea that I think it was the Truman, I think you know which one I mean. It will come to me. So the idea that when we step back and we get a little bit still, it's like what is actually true, and how are we scaring ourselves as well with our inner talk and being too quick in our thinking and not being relaxed or not allowing ourselves to relax. So Venus in Virgo, what is actually real here, and set aside the speed, set that aside and set aside the convenience story and look at the actual facts with honest eyes. So this is something that we're moving towards, I think, is looking at the what is actually real. And the North Node into Aquarius, that was the 26th of July, And a few days ago, as I record this now, and I want to acknowledge for me anyway, and for all of us, how significant it would have happened 18 and a half years ago. The North Node would have been in Aquarius in 2007 to 2009. That's 18 and a half years ago. And the collective evolutionary direction has shifted clearly. And I think for the period of the North Node was in Pisces, we had that, it's now left. And the soul of the collective was being drawn towards compassion, toward dissolution of what had been outlived in purpose, towards spiritual surrender and the softening of the ego boundaries that kept us defended in defended positions. And that work is never finished. It never is. But the emphasis is shifting. And the North Node in Aquarius is the collective soul being drawn towards genuine community. So you may experience that as well as a felt experience. I'm definitely seeing, I don't think it's just me, when I'm out, I'm noticing a lot more people, particularly if I smile at another woman, she will smile back. This is community, in the feminine as well, being kind to each other and acknowledging, giving somebody a nod. I've had a few people in the passers-by saying hello to me, females, it's really lovely, like really nice interactions. So, and that can make us feel safer in the world as well. So the community is going towards a shared intelligence, which I think is innate in us, but somehow we've got very lost along the way, and towards the kind of collective organization that honors the individual without being dominated by any single individual's agenda. And I think that's what politics has generally been. It's been a single individual's agenda. And this is a network of lights rather than one single sovereign flame. This is what's changing. It is about innovation and service of the whole, Aquarius. It is the understanding that the most intelligent solutions to the most pressing problems are collective ones, and they are, as well. So that's no single perspective, however brilliant, has the full picture. And that's the other thing. It's releasing that idea that, we know it all, because we don't. So the North Node in Aquarius, in conjunction with Pluto, will, in Aquarius as well, not in conjunction at the moment, but it will happen that if you look at this chart, that North Node is at 29 degrees now of Aquarius, and Pluto is at 4. So they're going to meet at some point in Aquarius. So Pluto is the planet of collective transformation, of the irreversible reorganization of power structures, of what must be composite in order for what is genuinely new to be born. So what are we giving birth to here? The North Node landing on Pluto in Aquarius eventually, means the collective evolutionary direction and the planet of transformation are aligned in the same sign, and at the same time in the same sign. And the direction of the soul of the collective is being drawn toward it. It's a platonic, it is depth, and it's demanding something from us. And the growth that Aquarius is calling for is not incremental or cosmetic. There's nothing cosmetic about it. This isn't about money. This is about something else. Really, it is about something else. It requires genuine transformation of how we live together as a society and a world. So this is, to me, really exciting. It's the compass point that's clear. And there will be turbulence, of course, on the surface. And there is considerable turbulence, as we can see around us. The deeper current of the collective evolution has a coherent direction now. Even if we don't know it, that's what's going on. So Aquarius knows how to build. It's the builder of something, of what has not been built before. And if you go back to, I think, 2007, I can't remember when the iPhone came out, but then computers and, things that were changing quite rapidly then, Facebook and the devices, the YouTube, all of these things were really taking off. So the North Node in Aquarius for the next 18 months is the invitation to begin something. Then Saturn retrograde. I'm going to do something on the retrograde planets tomorrow, but briefly, Saturn retrograde is turning inward, as the retrograde planets are. And I think that was July the 27th, a few days ago, at 14 degrees of Aries. You can see up here, down here, there to the side, 14 degrees. You can see the retrograde sign if you look at the chart here. And then it happened the day after the North Node moved into Aquarius, and Jupiter was exactly opposed to Pluto as well. And the collective direction has shifted now. The great confrontation between the individual and collective, it's reached a peak, and then Saturn turned inward. So I think Saturn is, really misunderstood. I used to misunderstand it. I used to be terrified looking at of Saturn in my astrology chart, but it has a reputation for difficulty, and people assume that the retrograde intensifies that, but I don't think it does. It changes the direction of Saturn's work. So Saturn direct is externally orientated, and then the demands and deadlines, responsibilities, it's the outside world, but the external is to do with the external authority and the structures we are building. When Saturn turns retrograde, which it's done, all that internalizes, and it's about the discipline, accountability, the examination of where foundations are shaky. And we all can look at our lives and think, oh, I need to really sort this out, whatever it may be. And Saturn retrograde in Aries is specific, because it's not Saturn in Pisces. This is a whole new thing. Where have I been avoiding taking responsibility for something I know that needs addressing? And where has structure in my life, a habit or a commitment, a way of defining myself, become a cage rather than a container? And I think that a lot of people are feeling that too. It's like, what we've had enough of, what I don't want, what I do want, all of us. So I don't think, and also, where are we governed by fear? I've turned off a lot of my apps and notifications. In fact, I've turned them all off. I don't think, apart from my emails, I think my phone has gone quiet. It doesn't even ring anymore, which is great. I have it on silent, but really, I have quite a silent sort of life unless I engage. And most pointedly in Aries, the sign of the individual self, which it is, which rules, me, like and it's about genuinely it's genuine choices of what I want for myself, and rather than what we've inherited from the authority figures, and without ever examining them. And I think most of us have been living our lives that way because we had no other way of really looking at it. So this will go on till November 2026, several months to give us a good review. And then if I connect all of these, then the Venus, Mars, Lilith, T-Sqaure, the North Node in Aquarius, and Saturn retrograde, they're not separate events happening, they're just not separate. It's all entwined. They belong to the same moment in our collective story. And that T-Sqaure is asking whose truth gets to be spoken and how. One, yeah. It is the immediate personal felt level of what the larger collective shift is working with. What are we working with? And the North Node in Aquarius is the direction. The collective is being drawn toward a new form of shared intelligence and community, and using our intelligence built on what is genuinely true rather than on the convenience or whoever holds the most communicative power. And the Saturn retrograde is about reviewing the internal structures, the self-authority, how we hold authority over ourselves, and the disciplines, chosen disciplines that we want to do, our foundations, before building something new in this Aquarian direction. And that lastly, Venus in Virgo, T-Sqaure, is, maybe, it's the kind of honest, discerning, carefully tended communication that the Aquarian North Node will need as its foundation. And the truth that Lilith is carrying, the inconvenient, expelled wilderness of truth, is exactly what the collective need to hear. We need to know what is what. on around certain things so that we can collectively go forward in a more of a transparent way, because all of this lack of transparency just confuses us all in so many areas. This is to do with pharmaceuticals, it's to do with the lines in the sky, the spraying of the sky. Some people don't know what I'm talking about, but you just need to, we need to stop looking at our phones and look up in the sky, and you'll see all sorts of things going on up there. And I'm not talking about aliens either. And then also, our water and our well-being and our health, the Wi-Fi. We've got no idea how this is playing out with our physical being at the moment. There's lots of studies on these things, and yet we're not being transparent about them, or people, have a. I don't even think people have agendas. I just think people are not being transparent because they're making big bucks, and why let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. So the truth that Lilith is carrying, the inconvenient expelled wilderness. And Saturn retrograde is ensuring that what we build next is built on something real rather than on what was expedient or like a habit, because we all have habits that we just do the same thing. And that is that. So, precisely, I'd say genuine, genuine truth. If we can speak it in kindness or not, sometimes we have to just get it out. And the North Node in Aquarius is pointing towards a collective that is ready to hear it, which is good too. That's it. So I think tomorrow I'm going to go over the retrogrades that have gone on a bit deeper. Thanks for listening. Catch you later.